Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the differences between making a decision versus supporting a decision. Oftentimes, both as team members and as leaders, we're faced with decisions, we're faced with situations where we get to either decide wholeheartedly or, and plenty of times, we recognize, gosh, I'm not the final decision maker and I want to do the best thing I can to help support this decision. So today we're going to talk a little bit about supporting decision-making process and what that is going to look like. I chose this topic because I'm with a not-for-profit group and we have our big fundraising event coming up soon. In the process of getting ready for that, one of the teams that I'm on had a phone call and we were talking about some stuff and there was a decision to make. And somebody on the team said, well, let's push this up. Let's push this decision up to George. He's the head guy. We'll get him to make that decision. And I said, guys, hang on a second. I said, George has got plenty on his plate. I said, just giving him this isn't us doing our part. So let's look at how we can support George with a strong recommendation or some options. It was a great reminder for me that this process isn't always clear for folks and that this also works everywhere. This works at home, this works with not-for-profit groups or other activities you're involved in, and it certainly works well at work. So we're gonna back into this. Where we're gonna start is with a little story. I was in the military for a while, and one of the things I got to do that was it's a really educational experience was I was the liaison officer between my headquarters unit and the next level up. And it was during this big simulation exercise. And so I had in my head this vision of what it looked like when the general's staff got together and how the general would chip in and he'd be poring over maps. And man, I was so far off. So the way generals make decisions is they have their staff come up with ideas and recommendations. And the general has a really specific role to play. What he does is he sits down, listens to what they have to say, and he says either, yep, that sounds great, go ahead and do that. He also may say, gosh, I like those options, and here's what I want you to do. Take this option and maybe add a little this or subtract a little of that. And he may say, yeah, just do some tweaking and run with it. Or he may say, do some tweaking and then come back to me and I want to get my eyeballs on that again before it goes out as a plan. The last thing, and you can probably see this coming, is the thing that the planning team never wanted to hear, was the general would say, you know what, that's not going to work. None of those plans that you provided are gonna fit. And when he did this, what was fantastic was the general was always great to say, go back to the drawing board and be sure to add more of this, take away some of this. There was a lot of steering in here, and this steering is where when people went back to the drawing board, they were really clear on, yeah, he helped us recognize that this aspect of it was more important or that aspect of it was more important. These are limiting things that help planners decide, how can I focus my options? How can I focus my creative juices to come up with something that's going to go from this to this? So what's critical in here is to catch that when we're supporting a decision, whenever we realize someone else is the ultimate decision maker, our job is to give them some recommendations. I talked about this situation here in the military, and there was always at least 3 options that were presented to the general. So whenever you realize, gosh, I'm supporting a decision and you want to support the person who's actually making the decision, be sure to come with several options. 3 is a nice number. Your organization may use 2, you may use 4, whatever. What's important is you're coming with more than 1. What's important with this is now you're doing your part. One of the worst things that a team member can do is show up and say, hey boss, I got a blank piece of paper and a pen, and I'm ready to write down the answer to this problem. That means the team member isn't doing their part to think through the situation, to come up with some options, even if it's only partial options, and support their process of making a decision, support their process of making a recommendation. what's real important is, remember, before we get even to these recommendations, and certainly before we get to a decision, the most important thing that a leader can do is help a team member decide, what is your process? How do you create these options? This is where the gold is. This is where the magic really happens. And this is where leaders can do their part in working with team members to say, okay, you're a little stumped. Got it. Let's look at some options here. How are you thinking about this? So it might be, how much time do we have? It might be, what's the budget we have to work with? It might be, who are the team players that we can get involved with this and see what's gonna make sense. So there's a lot of questions that you can help team members to use for themselves as they're thinking through this and coming up with options to provide to the decision maker. So in this short video, what I wanted to do was help break down, if you're not the decision maker, you're 100% sure that's somebody else. That can be good to know. Recognizing that you're supporting a decision and you're going to bring some decisions with you, and then asking, hey, what's that process going to look like? This is how it would be helpful for you to respond to the recommendations I'm going to give you, especially the idea of steering. This is so critical because now this is how the leader is helping a team member think differently about situations. The leader is literally telling a team member, ooh, in this case, I'm paying more attention to this, or this aspect isn't as important as it is in this other place. Now that team member is learning. So now their process for how they create options, how they look at things, their mental tool set for decision making is getting stronger. This is one of the most important things that all of us can do, both as individuals, is to learn, and as a leader is to help someone else, to equip them with how we're thinking about things, with how we are chewing on different problems and coming up with outputs. The actual decision itself sometimes can be easy, and sometimes the recommendations aren't that crazy. You look at it and go, well, gosh, that seems so sensible. Sure, the important part here is not what comes out of this, it's the way that people get there. So this is where the money really is. This is where the value is for team members, both today and in the long term. So play with this a bit, see which pieces of this works well for your organization, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what would be helpful for a future video. Thanks, everyone.